The Genesis GV60. Based on the same platform as its siblings, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6, this one here is meant to be the more luxury-focused one. Instead of sustainable vegan leather that's grass-fed and locally sourced, it has actual leather. It's got this little crystal ball that will tell you if your local Electrify America charging station is working today. However, it also has a drift mode. Yeah, apparently this luxury EV has a rebellious side to it, and you see this yellow boost button right here on the steering wheel? Push it and the GV60 will give you more power for 10 seconds. It's kind of like using NOS. So, let's push it and take off. Holy! My name is Omar and this is the 2023 Genesis GV60. So like every other luxury brand these days, Genesis wants its entire lineup of vehicles to be fully electric by 2030, which, if you think about it, really isn't all that far away. Now, what's exciting to me about Genesis and its electric ambitions is they aren't making them quirky looking EVs, well, besides this one here. Genesis is taking its regular ICE vehicles like the G80 and the GV70 and turning them electric. However, before we meet the electric G80 and the GV70, we have to hang out with the new GV60. This hatchback SUV looking thing sits on the eGMP platform like the Ioniq 5 and the EV6. However, it's got more power, more luxury, and more tech, but it has less range. And that's because the GV60 isn't gunning for the 300+ mile range segment like the Tesla Model Y. This thing is going after the likes of the Audi Q4 e-tron and the upcoming Mercedes EQB. So how does the GV60 stack up? Should you consider it over its rivals, and should you consider it over its lesser expensive family members? Let's find out. Let me give you a tour of the GV60. We'll talk about the EV part of it, we'll check out the cool next level tech, and then I'll give you my opinion on whether or not if you should get yourself one. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. All right, let's do this. All right, so let's kick it off by talking about the most important parts: the power, the range you get on a full charge, and the charge times. So the GV60 is available in two trims, including the base Advance, which starts at $58,890, and the Performance, which starts at $67,890. Both have a dual motor setup, so you have all-wheel drive as standard. The GV60 Advance is the slower but the longer range option of the two. It makes 314 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. The GV60 Performance that I'm testing here as well, the Performance option, it makes 429 horsepower, but also makes 446 pound-feet of torque. However, if you activate the boost function by hitting this yellow button on the steering wheel, you'll get 483 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque for a total of 10 seconds. Keep in mind though, Kia has the EV6 GT on the way and they claim it will make 576 horsepower and will do 0 to 60 in less than 3.5 seconds. Now, that's something really to look forward to. As for the GV60, with the extra boost of 483 horsepower, the GV60 Performance will do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds flat, which is pretty impressive. The GV60 Advance, on the other hand, should take about 5 to 5.5 seconds to get to 60. So yeah, the GV60 comes out of the gate with more power, more performance than its Ioniq 5 and EV6 siblings. All right, let's get into the range of the GV60, and of course, we have to talk about how it stacks up against the Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. Now, unlike the GV60, the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 are available with rear-wheel drive and a single motor setup. The rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5 will hit 303 miles on a full charge, and the rear-wheel drive EV6 will hit 310 miles. On the other hand, the all-wheel drive Ioniq 5 will do 256 miles on a full charge, and the all-wheel drive EV6 will hit 274. As for the all-wheel drive GV60 Advance, this will do 248 miles, while the Performance will do 235 miles. So yeah, when it comes to range, the GV60 falls behind its lesser expensive family members. Let's talk charge times, and yes, they are very similar to the EV6 and the Ioniq 5. Using a regular 120 volt outlet will take you 68 hours to go from 0 to 100%. Using a level 2 charger at 240 volts can take you from 10 to 100% in 7 hours, and fast charging from a 50 kilowatt charger will take you 73 minutes. And like the Ioniq 5 and the EV6, the GV60 also supports 400 volt, 800 volt multi-rapid charging, which works on DC chargers with speeds ranging from 50 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts. So if you can magically find a charger giving you 350 kilowatts, you can go from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. And if you're really busy and don't have 18 minutes, don't worry, charging at that speed will add 60 miles right under 5 minutes. So that's pretty solid. Also, like the EV6 and the Ioniq 5, the GV60 has the vehicle-to-load functionality system where it can become a source of charging or providing power to your iPad, laptop, or your camping and tailgating gear. It can also charge another EV. If you want to learn more about that, make sure you check out my Kia EV6 review where I charged my friend's Tesla Model Y from the EV6. Alright, now that we've got all the EV stuff out of the way, let's hop inside and check out the interior of the GV60 because this thing has a lot of interesting and cool features to check out. But before we do that, let's talk about how to get inside. Now you can simply use your keys to unlock the doors of the GV60, or you can use the digital key that comes in the form of a credit card, or you can set it up with your smartphone. However, Genesis takes it to the next level with something called Face Connect, which allows you to use facial recognition to lock and unlock it, just like you would use Face ID to unlock your iPhone. Once you set it all up, you just walk up to the driver door, put your face in front of this infrared camera right here, and once it recognizes your face, the doors will unlock, and it follows the same process for when you're done driving and you want to lock it. But it gets even better. Now, once you're inside, you have a fingerprint recognition sensor right here, which you can use to start the GV60. Just place your finger on this sensor and you'll get a message in the gauge cluster saying that your fingerprint has been authenticated, and you can now start up the GV60 and be on your way. Now, the next cool thing that I want to show you is this crystal ball right here that is actually your shifter. Once you hop inside the GV60, this crystal ball will light up with some cool mood lighting. As soon as you start it up, the crystal ball will rotate and reveal your shifter, and then you can just turn it right to put the GV60 into drive. Now, if you pop it in reverse, the shifter will give you a haptic feedback and light up red to let you know that you're about to back up. Of course, as soon as you hit P for park and turn off your GV60, it'll rotate back to the crystal ball. That's a cool little gimmick right there. Alright, so moving on, let's check out the tech in the GV60. And by the way, everything you've seen so far and are going to see moving forward is standard on both trims of the GV60. So tech-wise, you have this giant curved display section consisting of a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and a 12.3-inch touchscreen display in the middle. Let's start off with the gauge cluster because it is pretty cool. So not only do you have a bunch of info on this screen, this is the first Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis that I've seen with a digital gauge cluster display that has a full screen map view. Now, it's not super detailed unless you have a route set. You also have some cool animations as you circle through the drive modes, of which you have Eco, Comfort, and Sport. But one of the other coolest things in here is that you have a bunch of widgets on the right side of the screen. Using this optical switch right here to the right side of the steering wheel, you can circle through a variety of widgets that will show you info on your trip, nearby charging stations, a calendar, weather, recent call history, media, and much, much more. And if you're not a fan of these widgets, you can just hold the optical switch and also make them disappear. So yeah, unlike other EVs, not only does Genesis give you an actual gauge cluster, but they give you one packed with a bunch of useful tech. Moving over to the infotainment, now the home screen is pretty much similar to the ones we've been seeing on Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis models. However, as soon as you swipe right, you're welcomed by a bunch of tiles that let you dive deeper into each section. Not sure if I'm a huge fan of this layout. It will take some time to get used to. However, it's worth pointing out that you do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, as well as navigation. One cool thing that I do want to point out here is this section called 3D Setup. In most Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia vehicles, you can go through and customize anything and everything. What 3D Setup does is gives you a visual representation of almost everything you can customize and all of your settings. So you can circle around the GV60 to see all the different options, or you can click See Inside and that will show you the interior and all the customizations and settings you have inside the vehicle. That is really cool. Now, driver assist tech-wise, you get everything and anything you can imagine. You have all the basic and advanced driver assist tech like adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, but you also have a 360 camera along with a 3D view camera where you can go through and circle around the GV60. You have highway driving assist with navigation-based smart cruise control. And the GV60 also has the ability to parallel or perpendicularly park itself. That's pretty cool. Not to mention the heads-up display here is pretty next level. By the way, both GV60 trims also come standard with the outstanding 17-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system that really slaps. It's a really good sound system. Alright, let's take a look around the actual cabin of the GV60 and talk about comfort and convenience. This, without a doubt, is a very, very comfortable and luxurious place to be. The overall vibe in here is definitely more upscale than the Ioniq 5 and the EV6. Surprisingly enough, you don't have vegan leather, even though that's what most EVs do. The GV60 has real leather on the advanced trim, and then you have Nappa leather on the performance trim. The seats here are insanely plush and very, very comfortable. You get heated and cooled front seats as standard on the GV60. Both the driver and the passenger seat are power adjustable, so that's pretty cool. Going for the performance though will give you some more seat adjustments, and it will also give you ergo motion for the driver's seat, which is kind of like massaging seats. You also get a heated steering wheel, and yes, the steering wheel is also power, tilt, and telescopic. Now, one thing that you'll love if you hate all the controls and buttons being hidden into the infotainment system is that the GV60 has a ton of physical ways to control everything. Both GV60 trims have dual zone climate control, and the climate control section has all the physical controls that you'll need. And right below the climate section, you have some quick shortcuts for the infotainment system. Right here in the center console, you have a volume dial and some more infotainment shortcuts, along with a dial to spin through your infotainment if you hate touching screens. And right below the shifter, you have controls for your heated and cooled seats, along with your camera, auto hold, and parking sensor settings. And right behind those, you have your standard wireless charger. As for storage, there's something very unique in here. Every car has a glove box. Yes, the GV60 though has a glove drawer, which is cool, but I imagine things slide around in here quite a bit when you're accelerating really hard. You also have some storage right down there, just like the Ioniq 5, but unlike the Ioniq 5, the center console doesn't move forward or back. There's also some tiny hidden storage right here underneath the climate control section. And also in the back, you have some more storage under the center console. And check out this speaker looking circle thing on the passenger side door handle. This is apparently for a fragrance or something like that, but I can imagine people hiding some stuff in there because you can screw it right off and put something inside and screw it right back on. On the driver's side, that section is actually for you to adjust your side view mirrors. All right, let's check out the legroom in the back of the GV60. Once you get back here, you're working with a total of 37.6 inches of legroom. I'm about 6 foot tall. That is my seating position. As you can see, it's a good amount of room. But that said, this is still smaller than both the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. The Ioniq 5 really felt way more spacious than this. Now, two things to point out here. If you get the GV60 Performance, you'll get heated rear seats. And check out all these buttons on the side of the passenger seat. If you're familiar with Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia, you know that they will let you slide the passenger seat forward and back quite a bit. But what is this third button up here? Well, the front seats on the GV60 lean really far back, like really far back, almost into a flat position. Now, instead of constantly pushing these two buttons to put the passenger seat back into normal position, you can just hit this button right here on the top once and the seat will go back to where it was before. That's pretty cool. By the way, you've got some hater blockers back here. Pretty nice. All right, let's check out the cargo space. Like most Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis products, you do have a smart tailgate. So as long as your keys are in close proximity of the back, the liftgate will pop open automatically. And once it does, you have a total of 24 cubic feet behind the second row. And with the second row folded, you have 54.7 cubic feet. So that's pretty good. All right, so that was a lot going on inside. So let's finally check out the outside of the GV60. Now, I've heard mixed things about the GV60 when it comes to the exterior design. Some people like it a lot, some are not fans. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 received a lot of love when it first came out due to its unique retro design language. And the Kia EV6 also received a lot of praise for being sporty looking and modern. The GV60, well, it leans more towards being modern and being elegant. The thing is, Genesis couldn't do the whole retro thing like Hyundai because it wouldn't fit their brand theme. That said, I like the way the GV60 looks. I personally think it looks solid from every angle, and I will say this, unlike the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 that look more like a giant hatchback even though they are SUVs, the GV60 does a good job of looking like an SUV. Of course, you have a bunch of Genesis touches all over this thing, including the athletic crest grille. You also have the quad LED headlamps, which I love, and you also have the quad LED taillights that I'm a fan of. You also have this cool spoiler on the back with an integrated brake light. As for the wheels, the GV60 Advance comes with 20-inch wheels, and the Performance that I'm testing here gets 21-inch wheels. That said, I'm not a fan of this Hanauma mint green color on my test model. By the way, this color is named after Hanauma Bay in Hawaii, which is apparently one of the deadliest beaches. Look it up. I'm not kidding. All right, before I give you my opinion on how the GV60 drives, let me point out a few important daily ownership highlights that I'd love to show all of you. You have 6 cup holders, 2 in the front right there, and then you have 2 in the center armrest right there, but you also have 2 on each of the doors in the back, so a total of 6. Now, I guess you can use facial recognition and your fingerprint to start and drive your GV60, but the keys on this thing look super cool. By the way, you will need your keys if you want to smart pocket, because without the keys, you can't smart pocket. Imagine if you could smart pocket with your face. That'd be pretty cool, but you can't, so you need the keys right here to be able to move it if you get stuck in a tight parking spot. Door open and close sound from the outside and from the inside. Solid. Charging game-wise, front passengers get 2 USB-C ports right there. You also get a standard wireless charger right here. And then rear passengers are working with 2 USB-C ports. This is one of the first Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia products I've seen that doesn't have USB-A ports, so pretty solid. All right, let's do that indicator and horn sound test. Indicator first. Same old Hyundai, Genesis, Kia indicator. Now for the horn sound. Oh man, that's solid. All right, let's hit boost while driving. Whoa. Man, this thing really moves. Even if you're not using the whole boost mode function, it still goes like crazy. But to be completely honest, I don't think the GV60 needs a boost mode or even that crazy drift mode. I think these two parts of the GV60 is just Genesis showing us what they are capable of when it comes to EVs. I honestly think it's a preview of what Genesis will offer in future electric vehicles, and they're just getting us used to it. Either that, or this is a straight dig at Tesla's ludicrous mode. But let's talk about how this drives and how this differs from the Ioniq 5 and the EV6. Now, I've tested both the Ioniq 5 and the EV6, and even though all of these share the same platform, the same electric components, each of them has been very different in terms of their driving experience. While the Ioniq 5 has a more comfortable feel, the EV6 has a more dynamic feel. The GV60 here, well, this kind of does both. It'll behave really well if you're just driving it normally without hitting that boost button, and if you're not pushing it. It has a pretty comfortable ride as a daily driver. However, I will say that the Ioniq 5 felt slightly more comfortable. And that could be due to the fact that the Ioniq 5 was longer and felt heftier. This, on the other hand, feels smaller and more nimble. If you go for the GV60 Performance like the one I'm testing here, you'll enjoy some quick acceleration, some quick steering. This kind of reminds me of the Porsche Macan that I recently tested. That's the best way to put it, and that's not a bad thing. The overall feel of this is definitely sportier than the Ioniq 5 and slightly sportier than the EV6. However, don't get me wrong, this thing is still really comfortable when you want it to be. I've been driving this around for a week and have encountered many uneven roads and bumps, and the GV60 handled them really well. Of course, this luxurious and tech-filled cabin make the ride even better, but I honestly think that the need for the GV60 to be more in every sense, since this is a Genesis luxury vehicle, is what hurts it the most. More power technically means less range, more luxury and tech means a higher price tag. You see, even while Genesis shares the same platform as its lesser expensive siblings, it couldn't show up to the party with the same amount of power. It had to show up with more performance and tech like Face ID, a fingerprint sensor, and a crystal ball. Not to mention, it had to show up with the higher price tag, and while I understand that it's completely justified, the logical car shopper side of me has to say that the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 are probably the better buy here. With those two, you get more range, and if there is anything we've learned about EV shoppers, range is king. Also, it's not like the interiors of the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 feel extremely lower tier than the GV60. But honestly, if performance is your main concern, the most performance-oriented version of the eGMP EVs will be the Kia EV6 GT, and that will make 576 horsepower and do 0 to 60 in like 3.5 seconds. So you might want to wait for that, and that might also cost less than the GV60. All that said, I think this is a great start for Genesis. They have shown up with some pretty impressive luxury, innovative tech and design, and a boost and drift mode that not many buyers of the GV60 will ever use, but hey, it's there if you ever want to go crazy. Honestly, I can't wait to see what's next from Genesis. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care. Peace. One last time. Boost mode. Oh, man, that is impressive. Very impressive.